Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Well, let me start that over. We're not coming back. We're doing a new one.
Welcome to Outdoor Asylum. Last time we were talking about current state.
Write it down for me. Hey guys, welcome to Outdoor Asylum. Last time we were talking about some kind of the current state of waterfowl right now, the current state of the season, talking about the dry weather conditions and some other things. So I thought now we'll come back. We'll look forward a little bit to what's coming up, what the future holds. Now, one thing I've got to do before season starts, I got to get some new waders. I was kind of tolerating a little bit of leakage in mine toward the end of last year.
You've been lucky. You've had your waders for a while.
Yeah, they've done well. They've done very well. But
you got 3 years.
I'm needing a new pair. I'm trying to decide, what am I gonna go with this year?
I've been seeing this pair advertised, the onesie wader, what I've been calling it. Name coveralls with boots.
Looks kind of like like scuba gear, or yeah.
No, it's the same dry fit style PCV, whatever material, breathable material these other ways are, but it's a full coverall with boots.
A true onesie.
Onesie.
So it's, yeah. I saw some too at a recent outdoor show. I saw some of those, and I thought, I don't know. I
thought, why? The one thing I could see, and I would give credit for, is if you've ever hunted in a nasty layout blind on the ground style hunting, I could see that being the ticket. Keeping you dry, your back dry, mud off of you. But chest waders, I mean, we're up here under our armpit, so what are you gaining? 4 or 5 inches?
Yeah, but you know what? Even being tall like I am, there have been times where I find myself doing that little dance, that little up on the tiptoes.
When you find you need another inch or two.
You see that water getting up there, maybe you're trying to get that crippled duck, you're going to get the boat or something like that where you, man, I wish I had just a little bit more.
That's got to be hot.
Yeah.
You have no heat escape out the top of a wader like you normally do. Them's got to be warm if you're truly moving around or walking. They look good. I mean, you full zipper all the way down. I mean, chest pockets.
Might be nice if it's
cuffs.
icy out there. Early season, it might be tough, but
the onesie wader, no trap door though. That would be if you got to go. There's
been sometimes I had to get out of them quick, and that would have been
Now you're dealing with sleeves.
Yeah,
and
I'd been whimpering over there trying to get out of them in time.
That ain't going. Yeah, I hope they do well. I hope they do great. Whoever it was made them. I just saw the advertisement, but it was entertaining because I'm like, that's a new one.
First thing I thought was like, how do I say this? I've got some friends, and I'm not trying to condone this, but they like having them a drink while they're out there every once in a while. And I'm not trying to condone, you should not mix alcohol with firearms. I'm not saying that, but these guys, they do like to have a drink. And I'm just picturing them like, man, what would they, after a couple, it would be like, hey, Brad, I bet you can't
swim the river over there.
You can't get that other side. No, I mean, you're pretty tall. Or I could also see a situation, man, that last group kind of lit wide. Bet if I was standing over next to hugging that tree right there in the middle of the channel, I probably could have got a better shot on that group. I don't know.
If you are prone to tripping and falling in the water, this may be your saving grace too.
Well, then I may need to call them.
I have been known myself to fall in 3 days in a row, and so this may be my ticket out. I'd rather get my hand wet than my whole arm. So
not the best year to release a full body wader though.
No.
Now with the low water, yeah.
This is the year for that one company that let out the new very Croc style lightweight foam rubber boots. Like this may be their year in the duck world.
Yeah, the knee boot would cut it right now for sure. I can't see any of those falls right now where you don't see anything but a shotgun held up above the water. I don't see that right now anyway.
No, that one was a new take. I give them credit for being innovative. That's a new one. All the years of waders being made, 40 years, of chest waders from going back, and I'm not saying it hadn't been tried before. I think I've seen some at an expo before, but like that's a good take on it.
Well, there we go for some comments from our listeners. And you guys out there that have tried these waders, are you planning on using them? Give us some feedback on them. Let us know how they're doing, or later in the year, let us know how they did for you. Some pros and cons with them, and would definitely like to hear. You know what? It may be the next big thing.
It may be. I hope they do well. I hope everybody does well. Not knocking that, but like to me, I've just never. I don't understand. Like I said, I could see hunting in the rain. I could see layout blinds, nasty pit blinds even. I could see keeping yourself protected. That's a great setup. But wading, I don't like wading waist deep with chest waders, much less why would I want, if you're going to stand full time, I don't see the need for myself.
I know this. I know the first time I saw the breathable waders a few years ago, first guy that showed up with a pair of those, I'm like, you idiot.
Yeah.
That's not going to
You shower curtain wearing, that's the first limbs turn.
Yeah, it's never going to hold up. They're going to be leaking in no time. And I watched him for a while, how he moved around.
Oh.
And how he talked about how comfortable he was. And I thought, if he gets through this season, next year I'm having a pair. And the next year I had a pair. And I've never worn anything else.
The first pair I saw was a friend of mine had them on. And I said, what's that like? He said, it's like wearing bibs and tennis shoes. He wasn't lying. Like they float, they mesh, they're not stiff. We walked a many a mile on 5mm brush tough fleece line, walked a many mile in knee boots carrying those things over your shoulder too to avoid that. So no, I get it. So like I said, I hope they do well, whoever it was that made them. Sorry, I don't remember, but like it's just different. Everything starts out that way, so we'll see.
We'll get the customer reviews after this year, and then next year you can model your first pair on the podcast.
Well, speaking of next year, I wouldn't wear them till Thanksgiving because Game and Fish, I guess it's through that it will start. Is it Friday or Saturday after Thanksgiving? It's starting right after Thanksgiving next year, which from a deer hunting standpoint, from a spreading people out at the beginning of season standpoint, I'm all for it. Most of your refuges are closed the first week in the duck season because the gun hunts are still going on for deer.
How long ago was it? Have they had that in the past? Where it started?
Early 90s, I think mid-90s, they went away from it. Somewhere around then, it used to start the Friday after Thanksgiving because I can remember that was the thing. You ate Thanksgiving dinner, then you went off to camp.
I may be mistaken on this. We could fact check it, get the fact checkers involved, and I may be wrong. But like going back to going to Stuttgart to the World Championship, the first year that I ever got to see it myself, my dad took me down there, was 1988. And I was thinking that was, if that wasn't the first morning of duck season, that was the first time we went that year. I remember it was a low water year.
That would be.
We were out in the blind. And
I think you're right. That would be. It was somewhere around the same time the whole lead to steel, late 80s movement of steel shot and early 90s. Somewhere around in there, it changed.
Yeah. But that was always fun. You go out the first day of the season and you hunt that morning, and then we would head to Stuttgart for the festival. That was always fun, of course.
Because I think that's when they went, somewhere around in there is when they went to the full 60 days, because it used to be like 45 days too. And they went to the 60 days, and you had a December split that was a week, Monday through Friday, and you had a January. Remember, there was a split mid-January back then that was Monday through Friday. Around the Martin Luther King time frame, the 15th, that middle was always a split right then. Because it used to be open Christmas. And then they took that January split out, closed it Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and just had the December split.
So if we're moving it back a week, do you like it? Don't like it?
I do. I like it. So if you look at, for example, Cache Refuge, one of the biggest refuges in the state, a lot of people duck hunt it. It's deer season. The 9-day gun hunt is Saturday to Sunday, which is the opening weekend of duck season that last weekend. So you look at a year like this year, we were talking about the drought earlier. Now, next year, if we're in a drought, people can spread out more the opening weekend because all that ground is opened back up, because you can't even step foot on it without a deer gun permit to just deer hunt. There's nothing else allowed. And so I think I like it. Also, most people, unless you're the $1 million private club, most people opening weekend, if they find ducks, get one good shoot, and then it's done. You kill 20, 25 the first day, you might kill 5 the next, And so backing it up a little bit, ducks find an area, getting non-pressured, moving around, I think it's good. I think it'd be good for the festival again. That would get more people come down there for that, then turn around and spend the opening weekend there. So, all in all, I like it. I think it's going to be better.
I looked it up, and it's the Saturday.
It is a Saturday. Okay.
The 25th next year.
So,
yeah.
And so and it'd be curious to see what did they do with the splits. Did they run it out, run it not? I hadn't looked that far into it. My assumption would be they would carry it
It goes till December 3rd, and you got your break till the 9th.
So they run it, Saturday through the next Sunday? Yeah. At 8-9 days. So it'll go a full 9-day cycle, full week cycle, Saturday to Sunday, and then close it for a few days. So see, and everybody else talks about, normally if you kill ducks opening weekend, great, but otherwise the second opener is Arkansas's real opener for most public places. So, I mean, that falls right in line. I like that.
The only thing, well, I mean, there's always pluses and minuses. For me personally, right now, I'd be fine with it. I think back to being a high school kid, absolutely in love with duck hunting. If I'm getting a day off from school, man, I want to be in.
Thanksgiving break wasted now. Nah, go back to deer camp. Enjoy your time there.
Yeah.
But I'm like, like Jake's talking about, then you look at how they have the non-resident structure. You get your 9 days, you get your this days, your that day. So I kind of like it. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It will be able to see what happens. Yeah. More ducks come down, more ducks get comfortable, less pressure for a while, maybe a break from them. Because Missouri starts the weekend before us. So I think that's right. Yeah, Missouri always starts like the weekend or 2 weeks before our duck season.
Yeah.
And it's the week before, because the years that we have 2 weekends, the way the calendar falls, we would always go to Missouri that second weekend. And so they get shot out up there, then they come down here for 3 or 4 days and they get shot again. Now they might have a couple of weeks. They get shot out more, move on down. They said it might bode well for us on the amount of ducks we have.
Yeah. We also have looking at the potential change anyway, and I'm not exactly sure where it's still sitting now on the daylight savings time.
The Sunshine Protection Act.
Yeah, we got to protect our sunshine. I mean, my gosh.
So that was a daylight saving time thing. And it was introduced, the Senate okayed it, and I guess it went to the House, and I haven't seen since then. But basically, we would spring forward in 2023, but we would not fall back was the way I read it. And so it would stay daylight savings time. But, that's it. The hunting podcast, here we go. You're going to shoot later. No more 6:40, 6:39 shooting times. Now we're 7:39, 7:40. You get to sleep in. Is it a 4 a.m. rule or is it a 5 a.m. rule now? Do we get to hunt till 1? Do we get to hunt till noon? Because let's face it, the ducks have no clue what time it is. They're flat daylight. Pressure-wise, I mean, an hour less of people in the woods, I'm fine with that.
But you're planning to hunt in the morning, you got to get to work by the afternoon.
Some hunting before work may be changed. But again, you look at big clubs that manage your ducks, most of them don't allow shooting past 10 o'clock. Get them or get out. And so that's not necessarily a bad thing. Jake made a comment about the deer hunter being out there till 10 o'clock, at night because of an early bow season and stuff. I could see that being I don't know. That will be interesting to see. Like I said, that will be, and maybe that's a benefit of it is the pressure thing and, stuff like that.
Was this going to be, now you said they, talking about the House and stuff, so I guess this is like a federal thing. So,
yeah.
Because I know a lot of it's state controlled right now, isn't it?
No.
Because there are a couple of states,
aren't there? Arizona, maybe?
I think there was a couple that didn't have it.
A state, I think that was, like Arizona does not do time change. I think they're the only one that doesn't. But they also are in that weird mountain time zone corner where they kind of have their own thing. And so, but I think that's because geographically of their location, not because the original daylight savings time was federal and set everybody up on it.
It was always weird. I visited a friend of mine in Idaho a few years ago, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, like part of Idaho was in one time zone, then the other part of the state. I mean, it's weird to have. How would you like to be living right on the line of one of the two? You know?
So like Nashville, Tennessee. So like I've got friends that live on the east side of Nashville, and when they drive the hour and a half, 2 hours to Knoxville, they cross the time zone. Like they're right there on it. And you're talking about doing business and scheduling stuff. Like it'll throw you.
I was late for a friend's wedding driving to Gatlinburg. We didn't
realize it.
I wouldn't have thought about that either.
And so, but yeah, you're talking about that. Like I think they would still. My understanding of reading the act, you can pull the act up, Sunshine Protection Act, go Google it, whatever. But I think the time zones stay. But we will no longer do the spring forward, fall back if this goes through.
Yeah.
So, but my understanding was there was a blip in there that you could pick something on. Yeah, so it was, go read it. It's weird. But they are, I think Marco Rubio did it, pushed it, the one that proposed it. I mean, mixed emotions. Away from hunting, you got kids going to school in the dark, kind of not the safest thing. You're going to get home with more daylight, I guess, more often, but your mornings are dark. But the world has changed so much. Do they simply say, okay, instead of an 8 to 5 work schedule and school schedule from 8 to 3, 8 to 4, do we just do 9? Do we just move it? Like the world can adjust. This was dealt with factories needing daylight and energy savings and all that. Like we're not that really that point anymore. So
I
it'll
don't
be
know.
interesting to see.
I still want to keep everything as early as possible. I like getting home at a decent. Of course, I guess time would be the same. I guess once you got adapted to it, it really wouldn't.
I think
matter,
that's the biggest thing is everybody's like, "What? It's change." It's like it's change. Same when we were talking about the last episode of cutting timber, like it's change. We're changing stuff. We're changing the dates. It's just change. Mm-hmm. We've all been through it in some aspect of whether it was the type of shell you use, lead, steel, motors, this, that. It's change. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see if they do it. I'd kind of like it. I say split it. I say spring ahead 30 minutes, cut it in half, and just be done with it instead of the full hour. Like
so just do a 30-minute
just split
adjustment.
It. Yeah, I mean it's an hour. We're going forward. We're coming back. Just split it to 30 minutes and call it.
So you say you still want to have the daylight saving, but just do a 30-minute change. You talking about to split it and keep it?
I'm talking about split it and keep it.
I got you.
Instead of springing forward the hour and throwing that big offset, just spring 30 minutes ahead and keep it, and just be done with it. Mm-hmm. And so, but I guess before the original daylight savings time, we're going back to the way it was. So, what daylight saving times is not 100 years old, right? Wasn't it like the 20s, 30s, somewhere around in there? I mean, it's not that necessarily old. Maybe even younger than that. I can't remember if it was Eisenhower that did it after World War II, maybe, or yeah. So it's not even that old. And so, there is generations still alive that remember before it. So like, this is not necessarily that big of a deal, I think.
I saw one meme or something sign. There was like a Native American Indian, that was saying only a white man would think he could,
cut
make
one,
the day longer, cut
1 inch of the blanket off the top, sew it back on the bottom, and think you made the blanket longer.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So again, that'll be just adjusting your time schedule. I mean, you look at it from a duck hunter standpoint, I think it's great.
You like sleep a little later?
You sleep in, and if you leave the get out by noon, then that is less time in the woods, less pressure. I mean, it's a beneficial thing. Well, that's less time I get to hunt. Go lease your field and hunt all day. I don't tell you. You're not ever going to please anybody. But overall, I think that, people talk about pressure. People motor around 11 o'clock, 11:30, noon, when ducks come back. Like, that's not – because the ducks' time is not going to change. Mm-hmm. They're going to get up, do their thing for so long, and then move on. I mean, so it may adjust that pretty good. Mm-hmm. It would be interesting to see, I guess, if ducks are accustomed – to coming back at noon, our noon, because of the years of, conditioning, and they're used to coming back in right at noon, and now that's our 1 o'clock and we're all gone. Again, this may make your hunting better because nobody's ever messing when they finally come back in. So that's the kind of stuff where it doesn't affect their schedule, it affects ours. Mm-hmm. I know lots of bow hunters that take off and hunt the Friday, Saturday, Sunday of a time change here coming up November, because they say even though the deer aspect doesn't change, the times I can be there and the fluctuations and stuff is different. Mm-hmm. And so it will be, and the people moving around in the woods and stuff like that, it will be interesting to see how it affects them. So,
yeah, and of course, even if we're starting later, I don't know if the season. We're talking about moving the season back. I guess we're still having to be done by January 31st.
Yeah, that's a Fed thing. That's Fish and Wildlife sets each flyway, and it cannot go in past February 1st.
Yeah. So then you got to be thinking, our split's going to be different, or are we just going to shorten the number of days of the season?
Again, that's one of those you could, everybody's personal preference, but the amount of people that actually hunt the 60 days compared to the amount of licenses bought is like less than 10% when they do those surveys. So if you moved it back to 45 days and you had better quality hunt, I don't think anybody would argue it.
Yeah.
Hey, Dusty or Brad, y'all might know about this, but isn't there a correlation between the time change and heart attacks or something like that? Have you heard that?
I don't think they follow the solstices, or that's a mouthful. Solstice. The spring and fall, winter, whatever solstice is what the time change.
What have you heard with that?
Well, I guess it might be the spring forward time that correlates with a lot of health issues somewhere. Or maybe it's car accident, it's something. I'll have to look.
Maybe that's when the credit card bill comes in from Christmas.
You talking about like just that whole extended period of daylight savings, or are you talking about just the couple of days that it's when it just first changes?
I was going to say, I could see changing your body, your sleep habits and all that up in the stress level. Like
the first week.
The first few days is just crap on everybody.
Yeah.
It's not fun, especially springing forward. The fall back's nice, but spring forward. So, yeah, I could see there being some correlation with especially a heart attack because of stress. They're tired, they get up, they got to deal with this. It's different. The mindset of driving to work in the dark where you were driving, not dark or whatever. I could see that. That's the way off topic, but that's that natural, holistic, whatever they call it, lifestyles that back before all these rules we tried to implement and maintain, that people lived more the natural just life. They didn't have these issues because of that.
Yeah.
And so.
Did you find anything on Google?
Yeah, there's a higher mortality rate after the spring forward, not as much during the fall back time.
That's got to be the stress.
The thing about the first week primarily, or that whole...
Yeah, I think just the first few days after that.
Yep. Yeah, the adjustment time.
Yeah. Makes sense.
That first day of fall back's not bad that next morning.
No, sleep in that morning. But that first Sunday at church on spring forward, half people don't make it.
Yeah.
Oop, that alarm didn't change.
Or you see a lot of nodding going on during the service.
Well, I guess now with cell phones being alarms, they automatically update you're good, But back in the day, forgetting to set the clock, just set all the clocks going through the house at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, you got to check
microwave
your smoke detectors. You got to check your smoke detector too, right?
Yeah, everything was set with that. Oh, you forgot to turn the TV timer on or the VCR. VCR used to be your main clock in the living room you use.
Yeah, we do away with daylight savings time, man. We'll have fire breakouts everywhere. Oh, no smoke detectors are going to have new batteries in them, so it's going to be bad.
So using that as an example, I think a lot of people don't realize, maybe don't appreciate when a decision like that is made, and this is not a political statement or anything, but there is a really big trickle-down effect for these small things that have to be accounted for. And so whether you're the one making it or having to live with it. And so to me, this would be an adjustment, but to me, it's not a life-altering deal, I don't think.
I just always hope, every year you hear, man, why don't they just pick one and leave it there?
And now they do, and people are like, what the hell am I taking this?
Yeah, I don't know. I do like the fact that I want the daylight hours maximized. That's my thing. I want that maximized.
I think with spring and forward, you are in the true daylight savings time. Mm-hmm. And when we fall back, we lose it. So by staying forward, you get it. The difference is in our current setup, our current paradox, you're looking at, we are so used to in the wintertime, 7 to 5. Mm-hmm. Daylight by 7-ish, dark being by 5, a little after 5. And so that's going to flip. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be pushing 8 o'clock, but we have more time at 6. So when you get home in the evenings, a lot of people talk, man, I miss August where it's down at 9 o'clock. I ain't got time to do nothing. Well, now you will, if you have an extra hour in the evening. So again, it's just deer hunters will love it. I still go deer hunting after work. Duck hunters, you can't shoot till 8 o'clock.
Like Jake said, you'd be dragging him back.
I'm going to sleep in. Yeah, Jake's like, you track a deer, you be dragging back at midnight. Oh, yeah. But again, you don't have to get up as early maybe, because that may be one of the things like we were talking about. It's as simple as after a year or two, society can shift itself. Like, hey, instead of being at work at 8 o'clock and school starts at 8 o'clock, well, it'll go to 9 o'clock now. And maybe it goes from a 9 to 4, instead of 8 to 3 school or something like that. And I mean, post-COVID, the world is changing how it operates. So it's not like we've learned we can adapt to stuff.
Yeah.
So, but it is interesting. And it'll be interesting to see what the regulations do in response to it. Will Game and Fish change the 4 a.m. rule to 5 a.m. rule? Will they allow you to hunt till 1 now, not noon? Will they adjust, or will they take advantage, or not take advantage, but will they leave it and see if the pressure hurts or helps and all that? It will be interesting to see. I don't know of any economic gain or loss. It's not like in the old days when they did this, the reasons why. I don't see less people getting stuff in the morning or not getting in the morning or in the evening.
Like you said, you adapt.
Yeah.
I don't think if you see some type of economic hit in your business, you'll adapt. Yeah. You'll do something to change it.
But people having an extra hour of daylight in the evenings may go out more, you know, and so patio weather, if you call it whatever. So I don't know. It will be interesting to see if it even goes through, what it does. There's a lot of stuff with that, you know, this timber management plan we were talking about the last time, keeping going forward with that, you know, this cutting they're doing on some of the WMAs, what's that going to look like the next year? Will they start reflooding some of them on purpose, putting the gates back in? You know, if this dry year they can get into a lot of work on them, will they start trying to redo that next year? You know, that's a loaded question.
That's a can of worms right there.
Loaded question.
Here's another can of worms next year. Change is the factory boat motor exhaust from WMAs.
The exhaust, that's correct. So they proposed and passed that next year. Pretty much, it's the way I read the reg, and it's really weird. It's every single WMA that doesn't have a 25 horsepower rule, because Biomeda was not on that list. Neither was one of the other ones. My mind just went blank. Whether it's Raft Creek, whoever.
Rainy Break or something.
Rainy Break. Like there was but there was the couple of 25 horsepower limits did not have the factory exhaust rule. It was the ones that don't have a 25, but it's factory exhaust for outboards, mud motors, everything. Now, how they're going to tell, I don't know, beyond sound and sticking a, bore meter in there. I'm like,
well, explain to the listener that's not really following this.
So
what are you getting with this?
So, in the mechanic world, you get into, there's no replacement for displacement. Your stroke and bore size, your cylinder depends on your compression, your output of your motor. But like people know with trucks, you put pipes on your truck, Flowmaster exhaust. You can minutely enhance the performance of your engine. People are taking 40 horsepower motors, and you can bore the exhaust out and get a little pressure relief, which can handle some bigger reeds and carbs, stuff like that. And you can gain some horsepower, some torque, some top end speed. Not much, but enough to justify doing it. Same way with mud motors, which, hang on, because that's a hair different. But with the outboards, they're loud. I mean, it's like a 57 Chevrolet running down the woods, they're cranking. And so the mud motor side, I don't necessarily agree with to an extent. My personal thing is ban all of them, but the aftermarket exhaust for mud motors lots of times make them quieter. And so I could see where that kind of may be an issue. But it's still a performance deal, and I get what they're saying. But, yeah, just like a Flowmaster or the old glass packs on a truck, enhancing your exhaust allows more air, faster air, more air intake to come in and get out of your block, your house, and create more horsepower.
We're always trying to find some way to cheat a little bit. I mean, look at the recent news. How are we going to cheat as duck hunters? We saw those fishermen that were putting those lead weights in the walleye.
The walleye.
So how are we going to? What would a duck hunter actually do to try to get one up on his buddies or something?
So
there's weights in your shotgun shells.
I was going to say there's. Okay, so
what I thought
the funny ways of getting around stuff. Not that I've done this, but if you're ever hunting with a buddy who you see him loading shotgun shells that have no printed markings on the hull color. That's lead that he's wiped them off probably. The places you can hide spare duck breast, I have seen duck breast be in a empty box of shells, and the game warden pull the box out of the ditty bag and set it to the side, then put it all back. I mean, yeah. People do stuff. That's whatever you want to do. If you're that hard up for it, go for it. But yeah, I think it's just a human thing to always push the envelope, to innovate. And that's why we have some of the technology we do. I mean, you can go off on a tangent. I mean, medical technology and industry. I mean, somebody tried something different. Somebody pushed it a little harder, a little further. But I think the issue with the motor thing comes back, or their issue and their point of view from being the game and fish is the safety standpoint. Yeah. Whether you think it is or not, they are the agency responsible for providing safe, quality atmosphere and public involvement, and so if a handful are going to be goofballs and do this stuff, they have to look out for the rest. And sad, you can call it it's sad, you can call it it's not really hurting anybody. I understand both sides of it. I had a Suzuki that had the 30 horse linkage on it, to give it that little. I never ran it wide open and raced it, like it was just, but I could do it, or back in, and people have been doing this for years. This is not new.
We all want the car that'll go 200 miles an hour.
Whether we do 200 or not.
We're never going to go that fast, maybe. But.
I remember years ago when there wasn't even a horsepower limit, guys would take 9.9s and put 15 carbs on them. Guys would take 25s and put 30 carbs on them, move the restrictor plates. Like, this is not a new thing.
What we need to do, the government's wanting to go to, let's get rid of fossil fuels and let's go to electric vehicles. Maybe we need an electric.
Well, you started with the government on that sentence. Hey, I am all for 100% mark it down. Every single WMA I've ever hunted on, which is pretty much all of them in the state at one point or another, you could have a buy me to government cypress type walk-in area, which would stop some of this. Like, hey, if you don't like the races, if you don't like this, there's a whole block over here that is walk-in only. And pretty much every WMA, like I said, can be set up for that. I could go through and tell you WMAs right now that they're already set up like it. They just don't have it labeled and done.
I'm too lazy to walk in. I hope they at least leave us a trolling motor or something that we can use.
Well, even if you just went, motorless vessels, you could use a sled, a kayak or something. I would be all for that.
Yeah.
Because one, the price of boats, let's go back to that inflation, deflation mess. But man, some people can't afford to have a boat right now. And so this gives them a fighting chance. And on the flip side of that is that says these woods will not have that safety aspect, if that's what you're calling it, which is their premise for all this, would not have it in there. And pretty much every single WMA, to an extent, could have that.
Yeah.
And
we're making a lot of enemies right now. I don't know if I'd want to actually see that.
Like I said, I'm not saying we're necessarily all for this. I like the walk-in area aspect. I always have. There's a lot on your WMAs where you can only walk in. You're not going to get a boat in there anyways. But I've always, like the government cypress and by me, for years, I know people that have hunted by me that never owned a duck boat. And lots of people that if you say, well, let's open that up, 75% of people that hunt that area go, no. I boat down Mulberry and park and walk in, or I walk in from the parking lot over there. So, it's not a bad thing. Let's be honest about this. It's not. There's no boat traffic in there. So, if you gripe about boats motoring through your hole, now you haven't. This, I think everybody would be on board for the access stuff and how they control it. But at the same point in time, like you said, going back to why the motors and all that is we're pushing the envelope for no reason. Like if you're taking a 40 horse outboard and you're boring it out, you're redoing the carbs on it, lightening the flywheel, all this crazy stuff, just buy a 50 horse motor. Yeah. And so I think that's some of the thing is, it's a safety hazard. That's what they look at, not necessarily what we think, but I think that's their premise. And I don't know. To me, that's a mundane regulation. Not knocking game and fish, but it's kind of lost like the 4 a.m. rule too. Let the 15 or 20 that are going to get there before 4 a.m. go have at it and sleep in their hole, and the rest of everybody will come in at 4:35 like they already do anyways. There's
always going to be a fight.
Yeah. One way or the other. No matter what you do, how you structure it, it's always going to be that way. So.
I just think they've allowed too much access on a lot of places. A place I deer hunt, a WMA, 2 miles from the nearest parking lot. I could put a deer camera out and have all kinds of deer pictures. Last year, I had more pictures of e-bikes going by my camera than deer.
Yeah.
And it's just pushing deer to private property or just deeper in there.
Yeah.
Well, and some of it, and again, this is self-inflicted stuff. Like people kind of gripe about game and fish, but the hunter group, and there's not one person or anything like that, but overall as hunters, a lot of the regulations that are getting thrown at us, we're causing. We're the ones modifying boat motors. We're the ones that had some ignorant races. I was in them. I was part of it. We're the ones that ride Rangers or e-bikes to the woods where there's no four-wheeler trail where we shouldn't be on them at, and I was deer hunting the refuge during muzzle loading, and here come a side-by-side Ranger through the woods. No trail. Through the woods, 400 yards off a gravel road. Dropped somebody off and then was coming right toward me and saw me, waved, went back, picked up the other guy. And I'm like, okay, it's public land. You walked in on me. No, you drove a Ranger in on me through the woods, zigzagging through trees where no trail is. Again, we bring these regs on ourselves to an extent. And so.
Well, it's gonna be an interesting year in a lot of ways.
It is.
Things to. Of course, we have something to tell our grandkids. Like, man, back in my day, I remember when.
I remember when you could carry 5 cases of shells and not 15. Or, you hear that now. The old men, I ain't duck cutting since they made you start shooting that steel shot. Or when they first went to the 60 days or the quit hunting here. And again, it's changed. Whether you like it or not, you adapt or you quit.
Yeah.
And that's not a mean statement. That's life. There's lots of stuff I would rather see them do to benefit hunting than some of the stuff they're doing. We've talked about conservative limits and, the time change now. Maybe that helps. Maybe you drop a hen and try and let more go back, to help replenish because of the reports, if the reports are right. And again, it's changed. Yeah. It's always changing. Duck hunting's always changing. You adapt or you go home.
It's the only constant thing is change, right?
That's right. Get you a spinning wing decoy and some onesie waders and have fun.
All right. I'm all in. Well, guys, hey, listen, thanks for joining us. We always appreciate you showing up, watching the podcast. Give us some feedback in the comments. We love hearing from you. If you're one of the guys out there hunting right now, be safe. Have a great time. Kill some ducks. Kill some deer. Do whatever you're doing. Let us know how it's going. You guys take care.